This is the last Tuesday of Taurus season. It's been a nice one. I mean, it's been a lot of things, but it's been a pretty solid Taurus season, and now here we go. Just gonna sail out into full-on air mode. Mutable mode. Mutable mode. How mutable? That's how mutable. I've been like tired at this end of Taurus season. I feel maybe like my body, Gemini is my sixth house, and my body's like not quite ready for all of what's coming. Like it's just like we're already not good. Like Mercury and Venus are already like
that ain't your hair though. Your hair is ready for Gemini.
My hair is like
your hair is saying
party,
something.
and I'm like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for the party. It's like I'm already like, this is too bright.
That's because that's also because the sun is coming to square all your shit. That's why you're anticipating those squares coming up.
I don't want it. I don't want all the squares to. I was thinking about like, okay, we were in Pisces season and everything was squaring the nodes. And that was one thing from Pisces, you know, like all these feelings and like a big cycle coming to an end. And like, do I trust going in a new direction? And like, I'm scared. Like this just like, okay, we're just gonna like ease through, you know, it's okay, just float into it. And now it's like, what is this like other side of all these squares where, yes, I love this, too many thoughts, too many things to think about, too many things to think about, too many feelings. Jupiter in Pisces started off as this nice feeling and has already proven to be kicking up a lot of zealous a lot of strong like religious, a lot of feel. There's just a lot of there's already a lot. There's just already a lot. It's like it's already too much. It's already too much.
Yeah, especially for like the northern hemisphere going from winter into spring and now summer, or it's coming up on summer.
Heat is rising.
Yeah, and Gemini season is like we break out of that sleepy time of like, you know, we're just gonna ease on into spring. We're gonna feel good about the flowers. Now we're all like, I'm ready for a drink. I would like to see my homegirls, my homeboys, my whoever. I'm ready. I'm ready to communicate. I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to be out there.
Yeah.
And so I think that's also like it's such a jarring experience from like I was chilling and now like I have energy and I need energy back. Like that might also be like that switch.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like groups are forming again quickly. This very much like, okay, like minds, where are we? Who's been vaccinated? Yeah. Who wants to go? Who's been missing this thing? We're like forming groups around like activities that we need to go do now, like right now. And like even you, like you're about to travel, like you know, you're like, right, that thing that I'm doing. We are going places, things are moving. I'm very curious about Gemini 8th house. That's an interesting one. I similarly, like, I'm curious to hear that perspective because Gemini energy for me is very strange. It's my body, so it's like everything is moving. Like everything is, oh, okay. And it is like, it's interesting to feel for me the physiological impact of the onslaught of Gemini season. Like I am very anxious. I'm like, okay, everyone's just out, and okay, the CDC said that you don't have to wear a mask anymore, so you're just not wearing a mask. Okay, everyone's just making a lot of choices. Okay, everyone's okay. It's just this very frenetic, like, I don't know what's right, and everything's changed. But that's also where my Chiron is. I mean, you and I both have Chiron and Gemini, but in the same, very much like, what are we doing now? Okay.
Yeah, and
My
it's an
body very
anxious
much.
sign. It's an anxious thing. And also I think that's an interesting thing that you're saying, and also for Gemini 8th house is there's a difference. You feel like a difference. Yeah, you feel like a difference when the element and the house match up. So all of my water signs are in water houses, all of my air signs are in air houses, all my fire signs are in fire houses. Now they're not the, in order of Aries on the AC or anything, but like, or the ascendant, but they're all able to kind of work with that kind of house. So my Gemini's in the 11th house.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Like that is a communicative house. So like that is at least like an air house. It's like my Mercury still rules that 6th house, but it's the wrong house. It's like, oh
yeah, exactly. It's it thinks a lot about the body, like you're saying. It's like it's communicating with its own body a lot, probably. It's like, well, what's going on here and what's going on there, and I felt that. What was that? What was that? It's like
who's that?
It's like conversations with your body, right? And so Gemini in the 11th. Yeah, exactly. And Gemini in the 11th is I like to talk about, say, maybe the future, or what are we going to do soon, or how do we do it, or if you want something, what would it be? How do I make sure that it's? And I mean, it has the Aquarian quality of we're in this together, but like the Gemini is sort of like on the ground, like what do we need to talk out? Like what are we doing here?
It's very like, okay, who's going to do what, and like what's the strategy, and like whose ideas, let's sort of pool everyone's ideas
and
together.
Functional thought. It's like you can't just come up in here with dreams and idealizations. Like you got to come up here with like facts and figures. What do you know? Can you quote that for me? Can you bring like all sorts of just like very tedious information, like Virgo as well, 6th house, but like it's a different house. It's in the 11th house. It's just interesting. In the 8th house Gemini,
oh fun, that's fun.
Would probably 8th house Gemini would probably be somebody who maybe communicates a lot with their inner demons or their hidden trauma or things that they don't really want people to know. Yeah, so it would be
totally, absolutely,
right?
Like information as, I mean, that always, like, Gemini and water placements always interests me. Like it's sort of like me having my Pisces stellium in the third. It's very much like, wow, like we're just gonna talk, but like the places.
But about
go.
what?
Like, what are we thinking about?
But about all sorts of things you can't verbalize.
Well, sure, right. And so when I think about Gemini in the 12th house, my older sister has that too. Yeah, it's very much like I'm very interested in all this information, but it all happens to span like dimensions. Like, but I'm treating dimensions as actual realms, and everything counts, right? Like everything is. It's all.
And also with the 12th house, everything probably feels sort of nihilistic sometimes, or feels like it's never really going to get where you want it to be. And so anytime you say something, it's like it all kind of falls to pieces. It feels like it didn't matter almost. Sorry.
Sure.
Or like everything that I have to say doesn't live up to, or doesn't actually, really convey the experience.
Out of the 12th house.
Exactly.
Zip to like the vision that I had of it when it was just me and this thing.
Yeah, so you're maybe trying to learn how to communicate without actually words, but it is in some sort of communication. So it's maybe like if you're a yoga instructor just by chance, and you have to communicate, how to help people move their bodies, and how to push people to push people to inhabit something that's more spiritual, but not directly talking about the spiritual thing. I think that's the key, is the direct conversation about it can feel, it just can feel like it gets lost in an ocean, So when you talk about things around it, it like at least helps you get somebody in the ocean, and not necessarily, okay, so the ocean is a vast sea land.
Right. That's interesting. I'm stuck on this yoga instructor as like Gemini 12th house, very much like I'm translating sort of like an ancient set of rules and ideas and practices, but I'm dictating them to you.
And I had to learn them. Yeah.
And everyone's going to experience it in a different way. So I'm not going to tell you, like, it's not going to be this Gemini direct, like, A equals A. Like, it's equal on both sides. Like, it's going to translate into different ways. I can't control how you're going to take it. And then you're going to just, but I've translated this divine.
Yeah.
And here you
I
go.
wonder if you could do trans channel. I mean, you'd probably be pretty good at that if you were, you have to allow your ego to, and that's the egoless nature of the 12th house, is allowing your ego to go so that you can let other communication come through. It's like, you know, a lot of people talk about downloads, and I think that's more common than people who channel, because downloads, you know, it's like, oh my God, I got this whole thing, and you write it out and like you have like an experience with it. But channeling a lot of times includes other people, and it can get a little bit vulnerable. And so if you're Gemini, you may be able to connect, as long as you drop out of your ego, connect it easier to your communication. And that might be satisfying. But the ninth house, somebody brought up Gemini ninth house.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
interesting,
absolutely.
and it's opposing house.
Who's a Libra rising? No, maybe a Libra rising. Yeah, that's absolutely an interesting one. I love the inverse of like Gemini on such a large scale. It's like the world is my neighborhood. I can go anywhere and like talk to anyone, maybe. And everything I see is information and helps me continue building out like whatever I'm planning. Yeah. So all of these houses are going to get quite a working with this Mercury retrograde.
Oh, yeah.
And all of these squares to Neptune.
Yeah.
And then Venus is going to square Neptune. We have, I mean, everything. We're about to have our Sagittarius full moon eclipse next week. There's so much getting reworked for all of us in these places. I'm just gonna keep rubbing my head because I'm just like, I don't know how we're gonna do it. Like,
I was gonna say about the ninth house, something that like I have seen before is that Gemini can be a lot about comfort zone. So can the third house of what you know and what you can kind of continuously know. And you don't necessarily have to step into it and get like, you know, in it like wisdom like Sagittarius. And I think it's interesting to have a Gemini in the ninth house being like, okay, I'm going to just accumulate information. I don't have to necessarily get involved. I'm just going to accumulate the information, but it's in like a system that could expand you. Like anything to do with religion, anything to do with higher institutions or higher education, you know, it's even if it's just like sort of like monkishly, you know, going over certain things, or like continuously going back over and back, or even scientifically, because a lot of Geminis are so scientific, but it somehow expands. It's in some way expansive. Like you could probably find archaeologists are probably Geminis, including Virgos, you know. Anybody who has to categorize, but that expands a catalog, or that expands an understanding of something simply by taking in more information.
Totally. Yeah. Anyone who's able to organize, log. I'm not too stuck on archaeology. I'm like, oh, that's so
I know, right? It's just, or what's the bug one where you categorize all the
being able to typify things and like recognize things and absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
And then there's those of us who don't have anything in Gemini except for Chiron in the 6th house, who have never been good at organizing things, and maybe they have
you and me both, baby.
That's in detriment, because
but it's in the 6th house, which is an organization house. So
right. But again, it's ruled by Mercury in detriment and retrograde. So it's wholeness. So I do feel like I love to think about things as like, is this gonna be some sort of large clearing of like something? Because everything to me is karma, and everything to me is like, the timing, of course, is divine. And so Pisces. It all makes sense to me to look at some sort of Pisces big picture of like, we had Venus retrograde through this space last summer, and so that brought up all these issues. And that was when the North Node entered Gemini, and so that was clearly meant to start us on a journey of like healing how we have conversations, and healing how we identify things, and what are our own identities, and how do we communicate and share ideas in new and troubling situations, you know? So it brought up a lot of questions as the North Node is entering Gemini, and so here we are. We've had these series of squares to the nodes, so we've all been sort of pushed in these new directions. We've been having these eclipses on the nodes in Gemini and Sagittarius, and so here we are, and we've now entered 2021 with the Saturn-Uranus squares. So surely all of this has been adding up to some big sort of sweeping out, right? Because again, we keep coming back to next year's Pluto. And just the like everything that's going to just like fester and bubble and rise. And so, you know, we do still have, let's see, I know we still have next summer a Gemini new moon eclipse, even though the nodes will have shifted into Taurus and Scorpio in January.
Yeah.
We still have one final new moon eclipse. I haven't checked. I don't think we have another Sagittarius full moon eclipse. So it is interesting to be thinking about, like, okay, here we are in like a second round of this nodal cycle. Here we are with Venus meeting the North Node again, this time much earlier, of course, and that happened yesterday. And so what are these new, what progress have we made since last year? And I mean, for a very real example is for us, like, we are coming up on a year of doing this, like in 2 weeks, or I guess in 3 weeks when we come back. But you know, like, this was certainly something that started in that scope of time. Just like, oh my God, okay, we used to hang out and talk about astrology and we had all these plans to like do X, Y, and Z, and clearly the world hasn't worked out that way. So here's our new solution. In a pinch, we're just gonna start talking to each other on the internet. Great. And this is really fun. So that's dope. So obviously that's that's one of several cool developments.
Was us.
Yeah, like here we are having fun and like y'all hang out and it's super great.
Yeah.
We, like talk about Beyonce and it's so fun. So, you know, thinking about that, like what steps have we taken in those regards and what are the steps that still remain? And I'm sure we know a lot about at this point, since the North Node has been in Gemini for a year now, like what are my issues here? Like I'm pretty sure I'm clear on, based on all the squares that have happened, based on like I've got a pretty clear idea of like what is not working in this space, or like what is getting changed in this space, or like what I'm, you know, insert your experience here. But to know that we're sort of 2/3 of the way through a journey, I guess, and maybe next summer it'll just sort of be a like, oh yeah, that's the last one, goodbye. Because I'm sure once the nodes shift, we'll be much more into the real-time Taurus Scorpio bonanza of all of our politicians and all of the power hierarchies and the Pluto return and all that. So even though we still have a Gemini new moon eclipse next summer, to wrap it up, I'm sure by then we'll be much deeper into some other things by then. Yeah. So this is sort of like this big, you know, again, while the nodes are still in these signs, well, this is one of these big clearing out moments. So it's interesting to think about what's on the chopping block, what's going, what has to go. What have we been lazy about? That's probably why Mercury is in its own sign going retrograde. Be like, okay, so I know that I need to oversee this to make sure that you're going to get it right before this leaves. So I'm just going to step in and take over. But
yeah, I think it's also like I think it's also kind of looking at the houses, both of the houses that it's going on in. So mine is the 11th and the 5th, and it has been like, what am I speaking into my future, right? Because that's kind of where it starts, right? I mean, like, and it's like, okay, if I say I'm going to do something and it doesn't work out, or I have to adjust it, or it was beyond my capacity or capabilities at the moment, I at least reached up and I tried, which is the 11th house. And then with the 5th house, it's like, and also, what do I love? Where is it coming from my heart? I think, you know, instead of like the strategizing in order to just get ahead for ahead's sake, you know, it's like, well, what is the fuel behind this? And does it have a sense of, and not purity like the 6th house, but like a purity, like of the purity of the heart, like the Leo energy of the 5th house is like, is it fun? Are you enjoying yourself? You know, like, because
about it.
Yeah. I had a reading with somebody recently about that, like with play. And they were like, you know, I just feel like, and she just kept bringing up her judgment of it, which was great because I'm glad she could speak it, right? Just speak it out. And once you say it, then you can hear it for yourself, how it really sounds. It's like, so I know it sounds so ridiculous, but play just makes me feel like I'm not doing anything for anybody, that I'm just selfish and I'm just lazy. And I should be doing this and I should be doing that. And it should feel like this. And I just really get down on myself. And I'm like, but what do you think fuel is? You know, I put up that post before is something about, you know, when we work really hard for something that we don't want, it's called stress. And we work for something that we really do want, it's called passion. Right. But you're still working towards it, you know? So with that 11th and 5th, it's like, the changes that happened with me with the eclipses was, what was I speaking to my future, and aligning with what I loved, even though it was a very scary situation, because it's also a risky house, you know, it's also a gambling kind of house, you know, it's like,
absolutely.
right? It's like, who makes money off of what they love to do? Like, what are you talking about?
Like,
even though my other profession was that. Exactly. So it's like, it didn't change the risk that was involved, because acting had just as much of a risk. It's just that acting didn't have all of my heart in it. And so like, and obviously that was a long time ago, but still it was like these residual, I was still doing commercials. I was still, you know, I hadn't fully put it away. And I just recently didn't re-sign a contract, and that was the end of it. And I was like, wow, this is the only year I have not auditioned for something since I was like in my mid-20s. That's almost 10 years, you know? So I feel like that was that kind of Gemini, Sagittarius, eclipse in those houses was, you know, what am I saying? Where am I going? Do I believe what I'm saying? And am I happy with what I'm saying? And if I am happy with what I'm saying, are you able to play with it? Because Gemini in the 11th doesn't necessarily mean like you jump out of the gate and you're like, you're right there with everybody. It's like, no, it may take a little bit of time for us to calculate it, to look at it, to scientifically, you know, to really solidify it as a thought. Totally. And then we can move forward with it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and yours is 6th and 12th. So,
I mean, that may also be why I feel very karmic about it, because that is, you know, my chart ruler is Saturn in my 12th, and so that feels very karmic and heavy and like, oh my god, my life. And it's opposite my chart in my 6th, which, as I will say forever, is ruled by a Mercury in detriment and in retrograde.
Everyone, you will all know this completely through and through by the time
you know about Taylor. She can't.
You get to know us. She is Mercury detriment forward.
But it is, so it does feel it feels very karmic in the sense of like, I feel very connected to the Saturn and Capricorn transit that we had. That was in my first house and just after my Saturn return. And so that was very tough of just like, if you like, what do you want to be while you're here? And I was like, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know, just leave it alone.
Right.
And so, you know, now it's,
and that's just internal too. It's not even external. It's literally so internal.
I know. So it has felt like a number of things sort of coming up in sequence as transits do, and I'm just like, astrology just makes so much sense. So for me, it feels very karmic in the sense of like, finally, I mean, it's all connected to what we've talked about before, where I'm like, I can't be my own boss, and like my Mars in Taurus is like, I don't want to rush, you can't make me. And then it's opposite, my Pluto, which is like, everyone hates you and you can't do anything. So it's casual. Sad Astrology Club, remember? Sad Astrology Club.
Wow.
But it has very much been this journey of, you know, kind of starting with what you're saying about selfishness and passion and like, what do you want to be doing? And we talked about this the other day, but we're starting with what I want and then recognizing like, you have to make it happen. So if all of my karma is like, I've done everything, I'm a past South Node Libra, I'm such a martyr, I've given everything what they want, and I've given everyone what they want, and nothing is, you know,
I get nothing.
And Saturn's very much been like, so the thing is that like, if you want it, you have to prove it though. Like, you have to do it, then you have to keep doing it. I'm like, but that's hard. And then Saturn's like,
just make it happen.
Just make it happen. So for me, with all of these 6th house issues and having a very scattered relationship to time, it's very much about like writing new ways to make sense of time. Like, if it's not what you, okay, fine. It's nothing like what you think you're supposed to be doing, because you don't have that Mercury, okay? You have your Mercury and your Mercury is like blindfolded and confused. So we just need to figure out a way to make your Mercury work for you. Like, let's stop these cycles of not being able to finish anything because you get so worked up about not being able to do it the way you think it's supposed to happen. And instead, let's figure out how we can understand time. So however you understand time, like, let's just figure it out. Like, let's just, it's your Mercury, it's your Gemini, like, your ideas are your ideas, whatever like they can't be wrong. You just have to figure out how to work with them as they are, rather than like forcing something. Rather than like forcing something to be what's not. So all of my Saturn woes has been starting things that I care about. That Sag, you know, my chart ruler isn't Sag. Like I like expansiveness, and like, but then it's also Saturn. Anyway, so it's been a lot of karmic experiences with starting things that I can't finish because I convince myself that I can't, that I am not everyone else, and instead becoming who are you? So it's tethered to what you're saying in the 5th house, you know. Is it selfish? Like, is it wrong? I can't do what everyone's doing, or like, I want to do what I feel good about. I want to do what stirs my passions. I want to do the things that I do in the way that I do them. I think that's the difference. The 6th house.
Yeah, like, the South Node is going through your 12th house too, not the North Node. So I think that's also super interesting, because it's like surrendering or getting rid of the things that have held you back, the beliefs that have held you back about yourself, or the things that you even tell yourself. There are so many things we tell ourselves that we think we're saying in a positive way when it's actually super shitty, and then we tell other people what we're saying, and they're like, no, that's not any way of how I see you, and I think that you're much better than that. And it's like, we'll just be like, you know what? I know that I'm not good at XYZ. I know that about myself. And if I know that about myself, then I can move forward. And then it's just like, why is that your statement on yourself? Sure. Why is it the thing that you suck at? Or why is it the thing that you know, it's like, what does that do for you? But we think it's, like, we think it's this sort of inverse positive thing we're saying to ourselves. I'm being humble. I'm not even being humble. It's like, but I know my strengths and weaknesses. I'm just saying my weaknesses. I mean, it's like, well, what are your strengths?
What you said definitely helped me understand that it is a larger story of like, what is the point of doing this? Because everything, like, and that's the Saturn the 12th of like,
that's the 12th right there, baby.
Doing this if like it's all gonna fall apart anyway. Like, that is my Saturn, is up there just like, mwah ha 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 ha. So you had an idea. That is so precious. And then it's like, you know that you're going to spend some time trying to work on this, and then you're not going to get very far, and then time will pass, and then nothing will come of this, and then you will die, right? And then will it matter? And so then I'm like, yeah, you're right. That won't matter. So I'm not going to bother. So I actually do know that it's shitty. I just like, but instead of telling anyone else about it, it's just me talking to my Saturn and saying like, yeah, you're right. Like, the world is a very difficult place and is experiencing a lot of pain. So there's, in the grand scheme of things, no point to me doing this thing that I think is cool. So I think there's this big release there of like, your time is your time, and like, no one gets to tell you what your time is while you're here. And it all, whatever you think it's supposed
somebody
to
will be suffering somewhere.
Like, who fucking knows?
At some point, yes.
Sure.
That is Earth. That is karma. That is vibration. I mean, it is not anyone's job to tell anybody like who exactly they are based in, you know, something that discreet about someone. And so if that's the case, then let it go. Let it go. Like, you know, it's just
it's very, it is, you know, this is certainly something I'm recognizing with making projects with the tarot deck as well, being like, oh, I like making this and it's rewarding, but is my tarot deck going to save the world? Like, absolutely not. But is that a reason? It
could help a certain person. It could help many people. Like,
why does that have to be a reason? I don't know.
Why is that?
Yes, I think that you know, the Gemini part of it for sure is like getting to be playful about time and like getting to experience joy in time and not having to have all your time be right or the most significant. I did everything important with all my time and I didn't waste a second of it. So yeah, I think it's certainly interesting lesson to be moving through. But I like that we're circling back around this idea of play, like play not being selfish, and like Gemini is playful, and it's, I think, such an important transit we've been having throughout all of the vast seriousness of those situations that we've been in for the past What is tracking time? Like the situation's always, but especially now. So it is interesting, and of course, I think all connected that what we should be learning about collectively is Gemini, and is in flexibility and in mutability and in curiosity,
lighthearted, like shallow lightheartedness. You know, like right on the surface there.
Yeah, like I think it's important that we're going back to these fundamentals of what it is that we enjoy about being human, and it is really about like having ideas about our time, having ideas about our purpose, having ideas about who we are to each other, and then testing those ideas out. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think it's like it is if we're changing the narrative of, or if we're, you know, demanding a change to the narrative, then one of those changes needs to be our own narrative to ourselves. And
sure,
I think those are the eclipses that, you know, wherever it is that Gemini is in your chart is, you know, where you're speaking aloud your most, I guess, I mean, not shallow truth, but like, I guess, most surface truth, right? So it's not necessarily speaking. Yeah, like if Sagittarius is the South Node, maybe it's really not the wisdom anymore. Maybe it's just those entrenched beliefs, right? So that would kind of make Gemini in the more well, the direction that we're trying to go into. So it's really what we say when we are just communicating, when we're not super deep into our emotions, when we're, you know, super passionate about something. This is just what we're talking about. It's just topical information, stuff I did yesterday, stuff I read. What are you learning? And I feel like sometimes when we get back there, we see another joy of life that a lot of times we skip over as people who are healers or astrologers or tarot readers. We get so involved in like the real mess of life that there's this whole other aspect to life that even has probably even more vibrations than just that intense amount of suffering. That I think if we are able to raise that and really like cultivate that, we might actually help that suffering even more, because the more people are educated, the more people are open to communicating, the more people are listening to one another speak, because it's not so dedicated to the anger behind it. It's like, okay, let's talk about this. Like, what is this? Let's reframe this. And let's try to make this easier for everybody to understand, because it's getting out of control now. It's like when a child gets out of control, you just wait for him to calm down. You know, it's not even, you know, get in there, like cry with them. And it's, oh my God, I know. It's just,
my version of this is when my cat is crying for no reason.
Yeah. And then you try to get it to speak. You're like, what's going on? What's happening? You know, and the more they can speak, the more, you know, and I think that's, you know, especially between our friends and our families, that's where we can get involved. We obviously aren't on the stage for these much larger things, or certain things are just, you know, for individuals are too much. We have to all come together for certain things and have one mass idea and one mass push, you know. But on, I think, our one-to-one daily levels is where we really need to make sure that what we speak about ourselves is as important, you know. I love hearing everybody being much more much nicer to themselves about who they are and what they, you know, what makes them happy, and the kind of fun that they like, and the quirks that they don't normally talk about. And people just seem to like really be labeling themselves in a positive way, not necessarily an egocentric way. And I feel like that's, you know, a kind of that Gemini push of like, these are the things that I am, and I'm not going to look at them super deeply. And if I don't look at them super deeply, I can show them to all of you, and I don't care what you think. You can think whatever you want. And that's that Aquarian feel too, since we're going towards Aquarius with Pluto, right?
Everything is trining Saturn in Aquarius as it moves through, right? So, I mean, yeah, that's super interesting. I'm getting this vibe of like, we're all leaving the house for the first, we're not, you know, obviously not for the first time, but like, it probably feels like it. And everyone's kind of like, yeah, you know, during quarantine, I did these things. Like, I learned how to skate, and like, I made bread. I knit. I was knitting a bunch of sweaters, and you know, I'm like, I made candles. And so there are these, you know, Gemini has a very hobby vibe. It's like, these are things I like to do. If we're following Taurus, I'm like, this is what I have. Like, here's some stuff that I made from some stuff I had. You know, it's just like something I liked to do to play. And so there is this vibe of, you know, we're all sort of coming out with these new things that we've learned, that before this period we probably thought we never have time for, and many people have found time for. And so there is this sort of playful, like, yeah, Yeah, I read all these books and I learned how to play
Play the piano. I play the ukulele now.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. And it's none of it is stuff that I'm gonna go like write a book about. Like I'm not gonna go.
Yeah, it's mine. It's just stuff on. This is something I do.
I don't have a PhD in it, but it is something that I've learned I enjoy, and I have discovered that I actually want to allow myself to enjoy things in this time. I have found all these ways I can do something that like oppresses me or that makes me exhausted or is super draining. I'm now finding that I deserve playtime. I deserve to have fun.
Yeah.
I deserve to be stimulated, and it doesn't, as you said, it doesn't need to be serious. It doesn't need to be I'm making money off of this, or like this is my new side hustle. You know.
Yes.
Level of intimacy with ourselves during quarantine has allowed many of us to embrace our quirks and accept it. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. That may be why a bunch of people have broken up in this time, where it's just like,
stuff that they wouldn't, they didn't think they'd have to show each other.
Right. Like, I've actually been compromising on this the whole time. I'm like, now we can't escape it. So,
right. Well, and also, like, I mean, if we're talking, this is so true, because the Sagittarius South Node, I mean, if we keep going further and further into what we as individuals are learning from it, is the beliefs that we say to ourselves that are just not true.
Absolutely.
You know, and a lot of times, like I said before, we do that because we think that that's the moral, or it's like kind of guilting way into like being here and being like, well, I know that I'm just this horrible human and I can't play the ukulele. I never could play the ukulele, and I'm never gonna play the ukulele, and that's okay, because you know what? I'm a great person, and I love my significant other, and I get up every morning and I take care of my bills, and then all of a sudden I have time, and now I just play the ukulele, and it never, like, all those stupid beliefs.
Really true. These are all
out the window.
Yeah. These are all narratives that we thought we needed to ascribe to in order to live the life we were taught. And when that all fell apart, we all started seeing the cracks in it, the cracks in the stories, the cracks in the lies. And we've been like, oh, I didn't need to be that. Okay. Like, I learned about my family history, and now I see why my parents did. You know, there's been a lot of time for investigation, for reflection, for self-acceptance, hopefully.
Right.
And as you stated before, it has led us to a point. I also see many people like opening these conversations about the language we use with ourselves, how we connect with who we are, how that's painful and maybe connected to some old systems that were systems that we're part of, and recognizing I've been beating myself up this whole time.
Yes. We've been tired. We work a lot. Like, I mean, we're tired. I don't want to come home and learn the ukulele. I want to just have, I want to just feel safe to do it. I'm going to keep using this ukulele metaphor.
I think it's fantastic.
Right? But I drag myself home.
It's a perfect example of playful.
Right. I drag myself home. I don't have enough money for certain things that I want, and so I sacrifice and I go out and I get dinner and drinks and enjoy the moment instead of maybe being able to have a long term. And instead of saying I don't have the time and I feel exhausted and I'm just pissed off at life that I can't do this, we say it's my fault and I don't have the ability and I don't have the stamina. And if I saw, you know, this person on TV, they play 8 musical instruments and have 6 kids and 4 dogs and an accountant degree, and look what I can do. I can't do it. And it's like, you know what? Yes, that person may have a different relationship with time. Yes. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that the reason that you aren't learning something is necessarily because you're lazy, because look at what happened. You got some fucking time.
Yes. And well, that brings me back to my Mercury, right? It's like, it's not that you can't, you're looking at everyone else and saying you can't do it that way, but you figured out how to do it your own way.
Yeah.
Because you
maybe some people need to catch up on rest.
Absolutely. No,
maybe that's something that y'all can't do. I can't do that. I suck at rest. I suck at it. I'm like resting while reading something because I'm not supposed to be doing this. So
that's another layer though, right? That's another layer of that.
I learned how to rest in the pandemic.
Rest is selfish. You know what, Vanessa, when you rest, that's money.
I learned.
That's money. You should be making money right now. You should be reading so that you can learn something, so that you can charge someone money right now. You should be, I feel the same way. I'm like, I'm not making candles. I'm not making candles. I didn't step into the office today. I didn't do, I'm supposed to, gotta be
I didn't
sick.
do enough. I didn't do enough. I didn't do enough.
Absolutely.
I didn't do enough.
Still more layers that we're unlearning. I mean, CNN just told, I think it was CNN, I have no idea. All the news apps use the same, like, avatar now, and I'm just like, I don't know who you are. But I love that some news site told my phone yesterday that we're now realizing that being overworked is not just physically and emotionally draining, but it's also leading to shortening of life. And I was like, it is 2021. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Whoa, like when did you you just got yes. But nonetheless, we're finally talking about it. But it's absolutely true. We've seen exhaustion in like as the classes have evaporated, we've seen lots of people need to have several jobs and literally die of exhaustion while they're napping between their jobs. So yes, absolutely. And this brings us back to Uranus and Taurus, showing us again the value of pleasure and beauty, but also the erraticism of our spending habits. As you pointed out, we cope for our suffering and our being overworked by splurging on things and by having experiences, and by spending our whole paycheck on the sale at Forever 21 because I need all these pants now. Like, that's all I just do. I just need the pants. That 10-hour shift where someone walked off mid-shift and I had to cover. We're absolutely investing in this consumerism cycle when it is a continuance of how drained and exhausted we are. And so play, right? Play, the idea of play.
Yeah.
If we had actually opened up to the idea of play, maybe I wouldn't want to spend $200 on shoes that I don't need because I don't leave the house anymore. So why do I need these shoes? I don't. That's the answer.
Yeah. I feel like anybody, especially who has an issue with time, I think it also has a rebellious streak to them. Like, I think I told you this yesterday. I was like, it's about play, but like, because my Uranus and Sagittarius squares Venus, you know, it's like, well, if you play, you know that you're wasting your time, like you said. But if I just let myself do it and give myself that time to just be uncomfortable with it, I get way more done. Right. I get way more done. Yeah, because it's actually fun. I'm like, okay, I got into a rhythm here.
That has been some of my experience having a space finally, and being able to like have an area where I do all of this work. And so being able to float around sort of intuitively, and feel like I'm doing multiple things at once, but still have some sort of organization to it is like, oh, I can Gemini however I want. Okay, it's fine. I don't have to do it that straightforward way. That way is your way. This way is my way. Absolutely. No, but it's true. We punish ourselves for, I don't know, for not wanting to play that game anymore. And yet here we are, freaking exhausted, and realizing that winding down with some ukulele is actually really helpful and makes me feel better. The 5 seconds it takes me to put this pair of Converse in my cart and hit buy and then wait for them.
Right, exactly.
Instead of waiting for these shoes, I could just go,
that makes
crafty.
I have had I was telling you, like, I'm trying to figure out all sorts of ways to have something else talk to me instead of me talking to me. So it's like any chance I get, I put on something, or I'm reading something, or I'm watching something. And before I would tell myself, no, you can't do this. This is something, you're just not good at this. You're just, you're just having to get around this. I mean, it's all this bullshit. And then like, I'm going through my stories, because I put up those funny stories. And one of them was this guy who was like, I didn't know the public library had its own audiobook app. And I was like, what?
Yes.
And I just downloaded it. And now when I'm going to sleep, I put on Audible, or I'm listening to an audiobook. And that gives me, it's given me way more vivid dreams, because that's really the, one of my big things that I'm developing. Gemini in 11th house is like the ability to see far, right? And so I have to continuously flex my visual muscles. So I have to have something like showing me in my mind different scenes and scenarios and feelings, and, you know, so all of my dreams have been amping up, and it's just like, whoa, I didn't think that I would be able to dream much anymore, but it was because I wasn't allowing other voices inside of me, because I have that fear that if I let and this is, talk about my Mercury in the 3rd house posing my moon in the 9th. That is, I don't know if I'm okay with expansion. I just want facts and figures. My moon's like, yeah, but you're not going anywhere unless you expand with it. And the only way you can do that is by listening to other people's stories and understanding other people's experiences without necessarily stepping into it. But your emotions can understand, you can relate, you can find security in hearing other people's stories rather than thinking I have to pursue it all myself. No, so many other people have done it. Like, I have to do hardly anything. I just listen to everybody. Like, everyone's done everything. It's amazing.
Right? Like, why do I think that?
I know,
like,
right?
Who? Like, who is saying this?
Lay on this book. Like, watch
that's
that
so
4-minute
real.
YouTube
Those
video
voices,
that just totally
absolutely
illuminated me.
That's really real, and I love that option. I think, but I mean, this all ties back into what you initially were saying about us changing the language that we use around ourselves and what we're doing and what we think we're capable of and who we are. Absolutely. And one way of doing that is introducing different voices into your atmosphere. Because Gemini. we hear ourselves think, and because it's us, we just assume that that is who we should be listening to. Like, I just assume that you are a completely unbiased, omnipotent, all-knowing thing. And you're in here, and and that's for those of us who think in words, because I'm never going to get over the fact that there are people who don't think in words. But for those of us who think in words, because I literally can't not stop.
Imagine an animator.
Stop thinking in words. There we go.
Imagine an animator or like a director
who out there?
Right?
Someone needs to step up and tell us about this. But yes, we have no other. Why would we question our own inner monologue? Like, that's who we are, and all we have is ourselves, right? And so we just listen to that. But of course, it is problematic. Of course, it is. It is extremely biased. It has had to survive and endure many things. It has been influenced by so many voices that, we control who we hang out with theoretically in our adult life, but we can't control who's influencing us when we are children and spongy and impressionable. So of course there's crazy stuff in there. And of course there's detrimental talk that's happening in there.
There's brainwash. You're brainwashed. There's certain areas of your mind that you have told yourself the same thing for years and years and years, and you still can't get over it or get past it because you're afraid of letting that thought go. Because if that thought went, who would you be? You would be a person who had an open field to move forward in whatever way that you felt you wanted to go, and that's an ego death or an ego change. And that's why the thoughts are in the 3rd chakra of the ego, is because it's just the framework of your life. And I'm saying that very directly. I'm literally working on it like right now. I mean, it's constant work, but that is meditation allows that gap between what's actually happening, which is nothing, because you're just sitting there and meditating in whatever room that you're in. Nothing is actually happening, to what you're saying in your mind is happening. So the more you can create that gap, the less your mind is on a loop of the same things that it's saying that you don't even recognize that it's saying, because it sounds like that's just who you are.
Right.
And it's not that that's just who you are. It's that's who you're reinforcing yourself to be. So the bigger gap you can create, the more it's like triggers. When you first notice a trigger and you're like, yo, I noticed that. I went from, I didn't react on it, but my body went in flames. So I know that this was a trigger. I know it was. So I'm gonna keep not reacting until I either kind of deaden it or figure it more out, maybe something else. And you have to keep not reacting, even though it still is painful, it still hurts, right? So that's the same as meditation. You have to keep building that gap, so that the longer the gap is there, the less it's actually talking to you about things that aren't actually happening right now. You literally cannot do anything about anything at that moment. Those 15 minutes are in a chair, in your room, no one's there, that's the only place that you are. But I think that's also why we're starseeds, is because we remember when we were capable of being many places at once. And so our minds put us in many different places at once, as if our bodies could be there, and it can't. You can definitely allot time to use your mind to strategize, to plan, to think things out, to go over things. But the second that it controls your mood is the second that you know that that's your brainwash, or that's whatever it is inside of you that's just like reflecting your trauma from the past. It doesn't necessarily mean it's right there. Now, there's plenty of things that we experience that we have to have much more help with, like therapy and any kind of behavioral help. Like I've done neurofeedback, biofeedback. Some people can do medicinal medicine, astrologers, whatever way you need to do it, whatever means you need to do it. But there are some things that are you can just sort of pluck out, just like little things that can also lead to those bigger things that allow more facilitation for ego death and transformation and transmutation. But if you do that, you kind of become a little bit more participant in your journey, and that feels very connected. Maybe that's that Gemini, like I'm going to consciously look at where I'm saying things to myself that I was like, hold up, whoa,
yeah,
do I really mean that? Do I really mean that? Is that really what I mean?
That's an interesting opinion. Like, when did I form that?
Yeah, where did that come from?
How long have I thought that?
Yeah. And it will be for years. You will have thought about it for years.
Absolutely.
They don't just show up and you just go, I'll adopt. Like, somebody didn't just walk up to you and go, you're an asshole. And you're like, out of nowhere.
I am an asshole.
Out of nowhere.
I mean, listen, I have Neptune on the ascendant, so I am fairly certain that may have happened to me.
That's hilarious.
I'm 100% sure that I have taken one person's instantaneous assessment of me
and completely put it upon yourself. This is who I am.
It's taken decades.
But you know what? That's also because that was decades of being told things that you weren't necessarily, or things that you couldn't assume, or things that you couldn't.
Absolutely. Sure.
Yeah, so you're primed to listen to anything else but yourself. You're primed to reflect whatever other person's emotions there are. And that is a long experience of, if I don't open up and listen, or if I don't, absorb this information, maybe I miss out, or maybe I'm not gonna, it just goes back to those rooted kind of beliefs. So even if that takes you over, it's still rooted in something deeper.
Yeah, for sure. I like for you that it's meditation, because meditation does not work for me. I'm just remember last Thursday, and then 5 years ago also happened.
Your candles are meditation. Making your candles are meditation. Making your candles, what do you think about?
90 million things constantly.
But when you're in it, do you think about the flowers? Do you think about pouring the wax? Do you think about are you involved in it?
I think about pouring the wax. I think about what the floor feels like under my feet. I think about whether there's a breeze moving through the room. I'm just always thinking about 90 million things.
That's meditation. You're literally right there.
Amy Sakagawa says there's no wrong way to meditate, and so I certainly accept that things are. But I cannot sit down and say I'm going to just allow. But it has been a very intentional implementation of new voices, where I'm like, okay, so I hear this voice, as you were saying, I definitely hear things. I don't like how that feels. Okay, so so how I feel is different than what this voice is saying. Okay, so I guess that's my first clue that this voice is different than me. Okay, cool. So that voice is mean. So it sounds like I need less of that and more of something else. Music is definitely meditation. Absolutely.
Yeah, and cooking and anything. Meditation is literally just accepting that you're there in the present moment. Even if that present moment you're like, I had a thought that I don't really like. Presently, you're recognizing that you didn't really like it. And so presently you're saying, in this moment, I'm not happy with that. At any other time, it would have just been background noise, or an identification, or an extra resolution on how bad this is, or how bad you are at that. And this one was And that's what happens when you extend that gap by just being a part of what you're doing. You can meditations while you're washing the dishes. It can be while you're walking your dog. It can be while like staring at the stars. It's just any time that you are not in multiple different places talking to people that aren't there and playing images out that aren't actually there.
Oh, see, that's
things that aren't actually there.
That's where I don't meditate, because there are always images floating through my mind that are not in the present.
Well, yeah, and I think I say that because it also, that's the state you have to be in for hypnotherapy. Alpha waves is meditation. Yeah. That's alpha waves is literally the meditative. Like you meditate. Alpha waves are when you're watching movies. Only form of meditation. Yeah, then that's meditation. That's all you need. You just need even 15 minutes a day of meditation is all you need. I'm saying this so much because so many people say they can't do it, and that's still that subliminal messaging of belief systems that really don't help us, because meditation is so good for your mental health. It is such a good thing to even attempt to do, because it's asking yourself to stop being mean to yourself or saying things to yourself that don't mean anything anymore, reinforcing things that people have said to you in your past that are just not who you are, and really looking at yourself in a more positive light and being more available to yourself in ways. And I think it's just really important that Sagittarius South Node of like, I have to really safeguard my belief systems of things. Otherwise, I'll be hurt in some sort of way. And we're all opening up now and saying, you know what, my belief systems haven't really helped me. So when I say that I can't do something when it seems like it's for the greater good of all, maybe it's that I'm still in flux with it. I need to practice it more. It's something that I think is a really awesome thing. I just haven't quite gotten there yet for anything that you're doing at all. But it's like, this is like such the mental health time period that we're all getting so ramped up in ways that are completely valid, that it's like, what can we do to calm down our minds? And most of us don't have anything. So it's like, if we look at meditation as something that is just literally just being presently there and looking around your room for just 5 minutes and saying, I'm a human being that's standing here on earth that is no greater or no worse than anyone else. And I'm just going to take a second to pause and be here. And that's it. Yeah. And then it doesn't have to be this like larger Buddhist thing. It can just be like, I'm just washing the dishes. It takes me 5 minutes. So I'm just going to look at this pot and I'm going to wash this fucking pot. I'm just going to stare at the pot and this pot's going to be clean. Yeah. And that's all. And then you can move on from there, you know, but like, it's just, I think it's just beautiful to see how many children are involved now in meditation. It's just a discipline. It's a Saturn in the 12th house. It is an ability to build something that is not actually on anything. You know what I mean? Well, it's like that kind of...
Yeah, that leads me to my next point, which I feel like is that it's also partly changing the definition of it then. Because as you're saying, you know, it's in our, you know, culturally we look at it as this larger, like, you know, thing. And it's very... I don't know, it's been it's been satirized and mocked and whatever as we've processed what we think this thing is. And so I think it's about changing the definition of it. Just as we were saying before, the relationship that we have to time is often based off of how we see other people spending time, and therefore we feel critical of how we are able to use it or of what we want to do with it. And in the end, it's about changing your idea of what you think you feel entitled to do with your time, rather than carrying the definition of what everyone else has done with their time as like, I'm not going to be Elon Musk. I'm not going to be some sort of like super genius where I solve I'm not.
Well, we were talking about this yesterday with Sagittarius South Node too, is with all of this sort of influx of meditation, nobody actually, like, I feel like most people with a vague definition have never really looked into meditation. They've just heard about meditation, or they've been told about meditation.
Well, but you haven't actually read it. Our culture likes to strip things of depth and present
and that to me
the one-dimensional version of it as well.
Exactly, and so that again, to me is that Sagittarius.
Oh, I'm gonna sit in like, you know, I'm gonna have my hands like this, and I'm gonna be in complete silence, and like, there's gonna be doves in the background, and like.
No, never that. No, but but that's the thing. I think that's Sagittarius South Node. I don't think it's that we need to redefine it. It's that I think we should have people put themselves to the task of learning about it And that's Gemini. Gemini is taking your own, you know, initiative to go ask or to go communicate or to go wonder or to go like at least tinker around and look, what is the definition? So that way we can combat anybody who does this bullshit of just like, this is how it should be with the this. And it's like, that's, I mean, that's a very specific way of doing it in Buddhism. And even Buddhism would probably have the definition that I would say, which I've mostly read, which is simply just open-minded, which is, you know, you let the thoughts go. And the other one is focus, where you focus on a flame, where you focus on music, you focus on cooking. That's literally the only camps of meditation. Everything else that's been built around it are either religious or spiritual and new age. But that's the minutia of meditation, is just focusing the mind so that it stops jabbering. That's it. So it's like, I feel like it's so important with that Sagittarius South Node of the accountability of the healing community in certain things that we don't really fully understand, to make sure that the people who are coming to the healers also go and do their own, like look at their own information and make sure that they know what it is and what things aren't. Like I stopped myself a lot in times that I didn't before, because I'm like, I actually don't know if I fully understand this, and I'm not really sure if I'm ready to come up and say yes or no, or that what I think about this, because I haven't gone and looked at it. And I think that that's something that we're all like starting to do, is like, what is it? Let's like really look at this. Let me know for myself so that I have the basic Gemini information, and I can let certain other beliefs go that really didn't serve me because they weren't holding me up. They weren't defined enough, like you said, like they weren't structured enough underneath me to even give me an idea that I could do this, or that it's something that would benefit me at all. I mean, people think meditation is just sort of a switch off and you're in a coma, and then you just don't have any thoughts or inspiration or feelings or anything. It's just having a deadening in the mind. And that's literally not what happens. You actually get way more in your body. So it's anybody who says, you know, I'm spaced out and I'm more consciousness, you're actually going the wrong way. You need to get back and you need to go into your body. So I think that's like, I don't know, that's the beauty of like the Gemini Sagittarius thing, is like we look at the faiths of everything, I think, and like we're like, this is the way it should go because of the Sagittarian faith about it. But being in the South Node is like, you know what? I want you to stop having the faith, and I'd like you to just go up to Gemini and just talk to each other. Be like, I don't know what the fuck that means. Explain it to me, please. What does that mean? You know, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do really like how you've painted it in terms of really just fact. It's kind of coming down to fact checking. It's like anyone can say anything about anything, and that's probably some of that Sag South Node of like stories just become stories before we are even conscious of how they're becoming that. And it is about a conscious effort to seek out truth, right? Rather than to assume that what you've been shown is the truth. Rather to kind of go do your own checking for yourself to see if it hits in that same way, and taking it.
Yeah, that's been like a massive lesson for me. And so if that clicked with anybody, like that was a massive lesson for me. I kept holding myself back because I kept saying, oh, well, it can't be, or this is, or I can't, that, or, you know, all these things. And it's like, you don't fucking know. Yeah. Go look, go try it. Go do that routine for one day that you say that you can't live up to. Just do it for one day and see how you feel about it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Stop having so many emotions about it. Yeah. Or you don't think you can understand something, to go read about it.
Right.
Like, stop limiting yourself.
It's information. So just rather than
not gonna hurt you.
Feeling about it, try just figuring out the approach. Like, rather than.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The scientific mercurial getting out. And that's actually also interesting with that square. That might be that interesting square to your Pisces, and then the trine to my Libra. When I had Cancer Capricorn going on, this was not easy at all. But now with this, I'm like, oh, I kind of understand, because that's something that I've been wanting to do, is to get more involved with information. But I would keep going back and forth and being like, no, it should just be natural. I shouldn't have to like learn all that. Like, am I actually good at this stuff if I have to like really learn about it? And it's like, who the fuck told you that anybody who's good at this didn't learn some shit? Who the fuck told you?
Who told you that?
And every one of them would be really angry at you right now because they did. So
absolutely. And that does seem like it will be a big question for Gemini season, which starts on Thursday, right? So we are in our final days of Taurus season. We are going to be in like a hell of a Gemini season. with Mercury going retrograde and ruling. And so I think we'll have a lot of questions about where did this story come from? Who told me this? What happens when I find out for myself? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And seeing what that opens up. All right, we are going on a 2-week break.
Yes.
We are taking a 2-week hiatus. I know. We will see you then in June, which is very exciting. We'll celebrate our 1-year anniversary as well as our 5th
Bring wine.
episode, which is awesome. Everyone brings
BYOB.
bring snacks, bring BYO, whatever you like. We'll see you that first week of June. Right? Nope. After that, the second week of June. And then yeah, we'll take it from there. We'll do an eclipse check-in. Ooh. Yes.
One last thing.
Yes.
I got to throw this out there. Yoga. Yoga's meditation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
That's actually, it's yoga is actually equals to meditation, not necessarily physical body movement.
Okay.
Yoga is like 3 different sections. One is of the mind, one is of the body, and they all work together. So it's like these little things like that. It's just like the,
right.
like
the nuance.
That makes sense.
Totally. All right, everyone go research your favorite meditation while we're gone.
Bring them in. Bring them all in.
Absolutely.
Tell us.
See you in 3 weeks. You are amazing. Thank you.
Bye.